So it's really strange how things started falling into place. Like today, right after I uploaded my video about the policewoman, my story about not really fitting in with the Narcs family, I came across a video about narcissistic abuse recovery, and listening to it made something, dawn on me. Back then, I didn't really understand that I was living inside his circus. And what's wild is part of me did see it when I was really young, already starting to date him, 17, 16, 17 years old. I remember finally breaking up with him when we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. I remember vividly driving away from his house, just thinking how stupid he looked with his big ass afro, and I was so tired of his bullshit and his chaos. And it was nighttime already, and I was driving my 1988 Acura Legend home, which is a stick shift, and I remember going around the corner just thinking, oh my god, he is such a fucking clown. I am so glad that he's out of my life, and I took a deep sigh of relief. So I did see it at 17. But the thing about him is, he's relentless. He's completely nonstop. When he wants something, he's relentless. He's incredibly, I wouldn't say charming, but he knows what you want to hear. He knows when to pull out all the stops when he needs to be. And he's constantly future faking. Reading the most recent emails, it reminded me of, the empty promises he made to get me to go back to him 17 years ago. And it really was nonstop. The intensity, the emotion, the rage. He even threatened to blackmail me, and then he got injured, and he was home for a couple days. It was like he was pulling out all the stops trying to see what would work on me. And every time he tries to draw me back in, it's like he's promising that everything will be different, but I know better. And I could completely see why I went back to him 17 years ago. I fell for it. But this time I'm not falling for it. I know I'm standing at a crossroads, and I've talked about that before. I have to really, really think about my youngest. But I also have to think about myself and what it's done to me mentally and physically. I also have to think about my oldest son, who's already 18 and has lived his entire life with his father being chaotic and more. And so, with that being said, the truth is becoming more and more apparent to me. Me and my kids never belonged in that circus of a family, not once. They were always critical, always judgmental, always looking down at me. And when my sons were born, it wasn't just me anymore, it was them. And this is the really sick part of it. What's really disturbing me right now is acknowledging how the narcissist, the father of my two sons, didn't just demean me, he demeaned his own kids. And that's right. He absolutely would criticize his own sons. In front of me. In front of them. Right in front of their face. And he would also do it in front of his own family. He would talk about them like they weren't cool enough, or they weren't smart enough. He would make fun of them. And 100% it was like our sons somehow didn't measure up in his own eyes. Meanwhile, his nephew and niece were always praised. They were also considered the helpful ones, the cool ones, the quote-unquote, quote-unquote impressive ones in his eyes. And as a mother, that dynamic always felt really, really disgusting. Because I knew who these kids were. I knew who they are. I knew who their parents are. And what kind of, morals. And I won't go on anymore about the kids because this is about my kids' father. As a father, you're supposed to protect your children. You're supposed to lift them up and be proud of them, no matter what, and help them. And he has not. He has chosen not to. I understand he has these really deep traits of narcissistic personality disorder, and the psychology and the brain function for these types of people work very differently than normal functioning brains. I get that. And the thing of it is, these narcissists often see their children as extensions of themselves rather than separate human beings. So that does mean that the kids are valued when they make the narcissist look good. And they were most certainly devalued when they don't make the narcissist look good or feel cool enough. And so that's why it happened. So if the narc thinks that another child in the family is more impressive, more popular, or reflects better on the family image, they're going to openly compare. And that's all he did. He was always comparing. And again, here comes the triangulation. They will elevate one child while putting their own down. And in a sense, it does create competition. It creates insecurity, and I'm so grateful that my kids don't care. They're like me. They really don't care, and they see through their father's bullshit. But within that circus of a family, that's what the dynamic was. When their mother was still alive, she was always creating competition. She was always creating insecurity, and it did keep everyone fighting for her approval. You know, she did talk about her stepson being less attractive than her sons, and she would want me to agree with it, and I wouldn't. I just thought it was insanity why she was even bringing that up. And then another time she was complimenting how my kids are better looking than her other grandkids by her other son's girlfriend. She thought she was ugly. So, and was when they were babies, and I was just horrified when I heard that. I was like, not going to participate in any of that. It's just another thing narcissistic people do, and she was one, just like her son is, the one that I was married to. So when you get to researching this pathology in these types of people, psychologists call it splitting, and people in their eyes are often seen as either the golden child or the scapegoat, depending on how that person with NPD feels in that moment. And I know for a fact that her own kids growing up, they felt that shift. They know exactly what I'm talking about, even though they don't want to admit it, especially now that she's gone. They'll get offended that I'm even bringing it up, but it's real. It's what happened, and the damage continues. Because this is the bottom line. When you have a parent with NPD and they're constantly criticizing or humiliating their own kids, especially if it's in front of others, it teaches these kids that love is only conditional. And looking back, I see that dynamic playing out right in front of me for years. It happened all the time. I knew I never belonged in that family of clowns. I felt it. They made me aware that I was the outcast. And so did my husband. He made me fully aware that it was always my fault that I did not belong. I did not measure up to their clown family. And when my babies were born, they didn't measure up to be that pathetic clown family. I'm laughing because I know me and my babies are too good for that. We always have been. We were always levels up from that chaos, and that's what they hate the most. They think, oh, you're trying to be too good. You always think that you're better than everybody else, and that's not even true. You guys try to bring us down, but you can't. We're just two different breeds. And that will be the hardest realization for them when they hear this, or if they hear it. Because it just wasn't living through that hellish, awkward family dynamic and realizing that they're so different than me. It was actually a system that was built around control, comparison, and humiliation, and I see it for what it is now. And I'm so glad I'm protecting my kids from it, and they're strong, they're healthy, they're in a good place, and will never level down, ever. I'm glad they rejected us, because we never belonged there in the first place.